Hello everybody and welcome. It's NBL Overtime. Hashtag NBL Overtime to get involved. Hashtag NBL 20. The off-season continues. Plenty to get into and I'm not solo, but my two normal running partners are not here. Corey Williams is in Mongolia. We'll get to that in a moment. And Liam Santamaria, I've been told, is on a little bit of a break, except I believe he might be working on a fairly big story. Plenty more to get into, though. We are joined by two very special guests. We'll start with the man who is no stranger to NBL Overtime, Mark Worthington. Hello, big fella.
G'day, mate. How are you?
I'm doing really well. And, of course, in the middle, CG43, and a man who in the last 24 hours, I'm assuming, has made the very tough decision to shave off his locks, which we'll get to in a moment. Chris Goulding, welcome.
Cameron, thanks for having me.
How you doing?
I'm really good.
Before we get to off-season, Sean Long. In fact, before we go, we've got a new backdrop here at NBL Overtime, and this is what I love about the people at the back. Mello, of course, Trimble, one of your new teammates, CG. Nathan Sobey at the Bullets, RJ Hampton we'll get to, Sean Long we'll talk about. Of course, your former teammate, do you talk to him anymore?
Casper?
Yeah. We'll see Majooks will be up at Cairns and Josh Boone, another forwards. Couldn't fit you on the backdrop, and that's what I love about our NBL Overtime backyard crew, because thought they might have done something nice to get you up there and they haven't, so there you go.
I wouldn't have been there all year, I wouldn't have thought.
Do you watch the show?
Got him.
Sparingly.
Sparingly. All right, before we get to all things basketball, let's talk about the fact that you're doing a wonderful thing for Cam Quality to raise some money. You're going to shave off your hair, which is the most precious thing, well, behind, of course, the NBL Championship ring now that you have. How have you come to this decision, mate? And I'm assuming it was a tough one.
It wasn't too tough. I've been thinking about it for a little while, and I didn't want to just go to the barber and get it cut off. I figured try and raise some money. Camp Quality, an amazing organisation. They do fantastic things for families that have been affected by childhood cancer. So try and raise some money for that. It's been a long time coming, but ready for a change.
How much hair are we going to see the haircut that you had at the Melbourne Tigers days? Or are we going to see that beautiful noggin underneath that lock of hair that you have?
I'm a little worried because I'm not too sure how much hair will be left once I cut it off. I don't know if I've gone bald in the last 5 years or what, but yeah, it's clippers, so it's going nice and short. I may not go the full zero, the skinhead, but...
How much would NBL Overtime have to donate for you to go zero?
A zero blade.
Have a think about it.
The target's 10,000 at the moment.
Okay.
I'm sure on your wicket we could double that.
So if I tipped in $8,000, you'd go zero?
Yeah, I'd really consider that.
You'd really consider it. Well, yeah. I think if you go and you're doing such a noble
Keep in mind, you owe me 5 or 6 dinners off a bet that we won, and not one has been paid up. Maybe. So I don't know if I'd be jumping to take your money.
Firstly, we made the bet not long ago, and every time I drop you a text, you've got... I said, I'll share... for people at home, we made a bet that Tiger Woods wouldn't win the Masters, and he got lucky and then missed the cut in his next major. But I text you, I'm getting married, I'm in the car, I'm out of the car, I'm getting married. I've got all these other things. And then,
you listening to this?
So
sounds like a whole lot of excuses to me.
Is I'm getting married a good excuse to not have dinner with Cam Luke?
Well, then don't complain when I offer it. Do you want to have dinner tonight?
Let's move on.
See, there you go. Busy, always. All right, so look, there it is. You can donate today. Jump on melbourneutd.com.au, CQ. So that's a wonderful... Who drew that?
That was me. Just in front of the mirror for a little while.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful thing you're doing, and good luck with it. But yeah, you got to go zero. If you're going to... Agreed? If you go shaved head, you got to go zero.
You know, the funny thing is, when I was thinking about it, you just don't want the CJ Bruton, like the bird's nest in the middle of the hair. He does a really good job of covering it up, so I don't think he's at that point yet. And knowing Chris for a long period of time, I know he's got a nice little bump at the back here, so I'd like to see the Melbourne Tigers haircut back.
Okay, right. I'll take that on board with it. Thanks, mate.
Okay, make sure you get home and donate. All right, let's talk about what's been happening in off-season as well, because you were announced only recently in the Boomer squad as well, but in fact, I'm jumping ahead of time because they want me to start with Sean Long. So we'll start with Sean Long, of course, officially signed as the first NBL Overtime. We've spoken about it for a month. He tweeted. We spoke a little bit about the fact that he went a tad early. What's your thoughts on the fact you've now got the big fella in the middle? Yeah,
I think it's a great signing. A great signing for us. One of the most exciting players in the league last year. A young, talented, athletic big man. They're hard to come across. So for us to lock him down for next year sets us on the right path.
He did tweet a little bit early. Have you spoken to him, like as a teammate and as the captain of the team, when there's, and not necessarily just with Sean Long, but with Melo Trimble as well, and the third import, wherever that is currently situated, as the veteran and the captain of the team, do you have discussions with players, in particular, a couple who've been in the league previously?
No, I'm not sort of involved in the recruiting process. I was actually in Mexico when I heard about the tweet come out, so I didn't have too much to do with the aftermath of that, but the club handled that well. But, they're in our group chat already, just words of encouragement. Everyone's happy to have Melo and Sean on board. So it's going to be a lot of fun come sort of August when they get here, and we try and acclimatise them to our system and our culture and hopefully make our way back to the top.
Josh Byrne was obviously a really good teammate from all accounts. From the inside, he was one of those really good guys to have.
Yeah.
What will Sean Long bring that Josh Byrne didn't bring to the table? And it's not a knock on Josh Byrne, but what are you expecting more out of from Sean Long?
Well, I think the most unique thing about Josh was he was an import that could go and get you 20 points and 10 rebounds without demanding the ball. And I don't think we've seen that in recent years from an import. So that was what was really unique and really special about Josh. I think Sean, we're going to throw the ball down low a little bit more. We're going to need his post game. We're going to need him down low to score some points and go along with the finishes and the rebounds that Josh provided for us. But we need a little bit more post game out of Sean.
When sadness is probably too dramatic of a word, but Casper Ware and Josh Byrne was part of that historic championship, not just for yourself individually, but with Melbourne United and their first under that particular banner. When they're no longer there, although they're still in the league, what is your emotion about the fact that this is a much different group than the one that went ultimately all the way, to a grand final last year and a championship year before? Is there any nostalgia from you or emotion, or is it, hey, I'm a pro and this is what happens in pro sport?
Oh, there's a little bit of both. I mean, amazing memories with both those guys to win a championship, and the first one for Melbourne United. But overall, I'm happy they're in the league. So I'm happy for Booney to head down to Wollongong. I think he'll be a great addition for them. And, anyone that's watched our games or any NBL games over the last couple of years, if you'd wanted a starting point guard to go and get things going as an import, you'd go after Casper. So we don't blame Sydney for doing that either. But for us, we've got two new guys that are just as exciting as the previous two, and are now coming into their second year in the league. Melo and Sean to perform like they did in their first year is pretty impressive. We don't often see that. I think they'll be better for it the second year around.
I think there's no doubt, though, that Sean Long will be better the second year around. His second half of the year was remarkably much better than his first, or markedly, because, and it's happened to, it probably might happen to you, though, when you come back as well, but the imports who come in who find themselves in foul trouble just starting to acclimatise to the way that the NBL is refereed. And his second half of the year was much better because he was on the court a hell of a lot more than he was early days.
I'm just going to go back to what you said before about throwing the ball into Sean Long. The year that you guys won the championship, you obviously had Ty Wesley, who was your main post focus in that offence. Looking back on the year that you guys just had, do you look back and say we probably didn't get the ball inside enough and was trying to do too much from the perimeter too early? Was that something that was raised from Dean Vickerman and the coaching?
I mean, that's definitely something that came out of our year that, we tried some things. We threw Dave down there a little bit. We threw it to Booney. We had DJ Kennedy, who split his time at the 3 and 4 positions and was a handy post player as well. Now, someone of Ty Wesley's level, he's probably been
the best postman in the league.
There you go. So we had a lot of trouble last year. I think it was the overtime game at home against New Zealand when they threw the ball down to Sean Long, and he was a monster down there. We had arguably the best post defender in Booney as well. So we're excited about that part to have a 5-man that you can run pick and roll with. You can throw it up. He can shoot the ball at somewhere around 40% from 3, and to be a force down low. We're really happy with the signing.
Now that you've got Melo and Sean, does the offense move to a quicker pace now where Casper's a little bit more deliberate and more half-court? We saw what Melo Trimble could do this year. He's a really explosive sort of player, but it allows players like yourself and Mitch McCarron to run out a little bit more and to play a little bit more fast-paced.
Yeah, I think we're going to go... Now, this is not through conversation with Dean or anyone that I've had, but I think
This is on the record. Go on.
Go ahead.
I think there'll be a lot of whoever can get it off the rim. You know, Mitch McCarron, myself, Mello, we can all push the ball. So whoever get it off the rim, we don't have to stop and get it back to the point guard. Let's go. Let's see what we can explore in early transition. It's the way basketball worldwide is heading. Is can you get easy, good looks? And we saw, especially against us, the stuff Mello can do in the open court. He's one of a kind, so we're pretty excited about that.
You're off-season, of course, named in the Australian Boomers squad of 18 a couple of weeks ago, and it's such a huge year. Any time that, 18 months really with the Olympics next year as well, but any time we've got high-level basketball in our backyard, as the 2 games at Marvel and then to Perth, and then possibly some other games with some other nations to be announced in the next week or two, it's always going to be big. How excited are you to be one in the squad, and how focused and determination and your off-season is geared towards ultimately making the team of 12?
Yeah, I think over the last sort of 12 months or so, all the guys that are doing really well in Europe, making their way into the NBA, it's hard to sort of get your hopes up about making a Boomers squad or a Boomers team, and it's the way it should be, but once I got the email that I was in the squad.
Just on that, so it's an email to find out if you're in the Australian squad, so there's no phone call. So if you don't make it, do you receive it? How does that work? Well, you both played for Australia. How does that traditionally work?
Well,
you've
I'm
missed
not
out
too
on the Australian
sure.
team, haven't you, at some point?
Not since I was a lot younger.
Sorry.
But if you don't make the squad,
Yeah.
I would imagine that you would get a phone call
Okay.
and
Yeah.
let them know.
Do you know who you're talking to, mate?
Yeah,
we make squads.
Okay, cool. My apologies. Maybe I won't name anyone who's probably missed out, but I just find it remarkable that you find out you're in an Australian squad, which is such a huge part of Australian basketball and what's going to happen in 18 months.
Well, let's just say that it probably reflects the Australian culture that everything goes through email now instead of people actually talking to each
What's
other.
the subject line?
I mean, you've got to
You're
understand that there's people all over the world.
I agree. I understand.
So let's get it done in one hit
Yeah.
and focus on what really matters.
All
So
right.
the emotion of it all came back to me that I'm going to be going into another camp and vie for a spot at another World Cup, and I'm so excited. I can't wait to get there start of August.
Are you on court earlier, and I'm not talking from a training as in 5-on-5, or you might be doing a little bit of that, but are you on court earlier now than you would be in another off-season, maybe 12 months, 2 years ago?
Oh, it really depends what's sort of coming up. If there was not too many international duties, you may push it a little longer. But I've been on since I got back from sort of my honeymoon. We've been back on court. As you can see, some footage, working out a little bit with Barlow. Ingles is coming down every now and then, pinging some threes, shooting at about 85% from 3. He just keeps saying, "It's a long 2 for me. It's a long 2." But we're back into it and getting ready for August 2nd.
Hey, were you the captain of the Commonwealth Games team?
We didn't have a captain.
Didn't have a captain.
We haven't. Yeah,
That's Andre's rule. There's no captains.
of late, there's been no sort of one-person captain. You know, it's the leadership shared over quite a few guys, and everyone sort of takes on different leadership roles at different times.
All right, we'll park that because we'll get to the US team in a minute. But a huge announcement, and we, of course, did double NBL overtime last Tuesday when RJ Hampton went on Get Up on ESPN in the States and announced that rather than go to Kansas or Texas Tech or North Carolina or Duke or a bevy of colleges, in fact, all of them in Division 1 who wanted him, he chose the New Zealand Breakers. It has been a huge point of discussion. As a player in the league, when you see the news, and I'm not sure how much you know about RJ Hampton, but more generically, when you see someone make the decision, and Worthy, you've been in the league and around the tracks for a long time, how big is it for basketball in this country that a young kid is choosing to play his 1 year here rather than to be a one and done in the NCAA?
Yeah, I mean, I think all the media coverage, the social media coverage that the league and the Breakers received just off that decision makes it all worthwhile. I don't know a hell of a lot about RJ Hampton. If you look at his clips, he's super athletic, he's long. He looks like a really good player, so I would imagine New Zealand got himself a good one, and it's going to be interesting how that all works in New Zealand. A lot of guards on that roster.
I'm interested because his dad is known as LaVar Ball Jr. he's known as another LaVar Ball. So
he does
I'm
his own cooking show on Twitter.
Right.
Right.
And the mum and the dad are both coming to New
They're all
Zealand
coming.
to come and support him. A great signing by the league. Kudos to Joey Wright, who knows his dad, who maybe floated the idea that maybe you should come to the NBL. And kudos to New Zealand for taking a chance on the kid. The one thing I'd say is we can't expect too much from him. This is a kid coming out of high school. Yes, he's 6'5", but if you look at the guards in our league, You've got Damian Martin waiting for him. Deshaun Taylor, who's apparently Patrick Beverley 2.0. Casper Ware, Mello Trimble. He's going to have a tough time. That being said, he said he wanted to become a pro. His whole goal was to be an NBA player one day. It wasn't to play college. So for the people like Aaron Torres from Kentucky who wants to spit the dummy and say that this...
I seen you beefing with him on Twitter during the week.
Well, there's arrogance and there's stupidity, and he's both. And so I'm just saying, yes, he's going to cop his lickings while he's down here, but you can't get a better introduction into pro basketball than coming up against some of the point guards that we have in our league that are world class, that are fringe NBA, that have proven themselves that probably could be there, and someone like Damian Martin, who we know has just shut down every single point guard in the league that's come into it.
Oh, and shooting guards as well.
And shooting guards. But I think it's a great signing by New Zealand. I think it's a great ploy by the NBL that's already paid off publicity-wise. And I think it's going to be great for RJ Hampton moving forward.
Torres was an interesting one, and what he said on the radio as well, to which you responded to. But the thing is, I was really surprised. Actually, I probably wasn't surprised. More disappointed in the narrow-minded, I guess, focus that so many of the American sportscasters or broadcasters had. Now, not to say that he wouldn't have gone to college for 1 year and been really good, but it doesn't necessarily mean because he doesn't, he's not going to have a great pro career. And it may not work. He may not have been a guy that is going to be in 10 years' time an outstanding NBA player, or he may be, and it might be because he came here or he didn't. But we're not going to know that for a little while. And I was actually a little disappointed with some of the narrow-minded views by some of the sportscasters in the US.
And let's get one thing straight. He tried to tear down the NBL. I'm not here to tear down college basketball. I'm just saying college basketball's not for everyone.
That's right.
And we look at someone like Chris who chose not to go. I think he's turned out to have a pretty good career, learning to play against men every day from a young age. David Barlow went for 1 year at Metro State and then came back. Not everyone's going to do 4 years. And for the people that say, oh, but you get a free education. Well, you don't get it in 1 year.
No, you don't.
You've got to be there for 4. And he's already made his intentions. I'm going for 1 year somewhere and then I'm going somewhere else. And they have to actually go to school for the 3/4 of the year until you get to, like, I'm a one and done, and you don't go to school for the last quarter of a year just to work on your basketball. RJ's like, I'm putting myself into a position to be in a professional environment day in and day out. That's his choice. He's making money while he's doing it. He doesn't have to sit back and see John Calipari making $2 million a year to yell at him. And he's going to be coached in New Zealand. It makes so much more sense.
Will he start?
Yes, he will.
Yeah, he will start. Dean Vickerman, your coach, was on with me on the radio last week and said that they'd spoken to Hampton, and I'm not sure who it was, representatives or his dad, and the feeling I got was that he is keen to start, and Melbourne United...
He's going to be playing more than 20 minutes a game as well.
This is the point. This is the point, OK? Because Shea Ili was their starting point guard last year. Jared Weeks came off the bench and had a really good year off the bench. Then they're going to have 3 point guards. One of those guys, Ili and Weeks, who are both under contract, are going to get squeezed out. It has to.
Yeah.
So, and there's going to be an NBL team that is going to probably, if you're looking for a guy come off the bench, Shea Ili as a starting point guard probably didn't have the year that I think definitely Kevin Braswell, a lot of people thought he might have, but Weeks is going to be the third in line. So Weeks or Shea Ili could be, while under contract...
I think we see Jared Weeks more as a two-man this year, and it becomes exciting because he's that up-tempo sort of player. And similar to what Chris said before about grabbing the rebound and running, if you've got Jared Weeks or RJ running, they're pretty two taller, athletic sort of players in that point guard position that can play multiple spots.
They need to get more out of their imports this year. Not Sean Long, who played the most, but their other 2 imports last year, for whatever reason, didn't have opportunities in the second half of the year. Now, maybe they didn't earn them on the practice court, but they need to find imports, or at least one, to surround Hampton. But it's Shea Ili, the Abercrombies of the world, and of course Corey Webster, who's there and insanely talented, although was disappointing last year. They need to be able to find imports who are going to play minutes.
And another thing with New Zealand, they gave the keys to the car to Shea Ili last year, and you had arguably one of the best centre, arguably, especially in the second half of the season in Sean Long. You had Ty Wesley, who we've already discussed as the best postman, and you guys still finished in 7th spot last year. So Shea Ili didn't work. That experiment didn't work. Bringing in someone like RJ, the real crucial part now is the parts that they put around him to be able to succeed. Because even with those two gun 4 and 5 players, they still struggled. So they need the likes of Abercrombie, Webster to step up this year and support a young guy in what he's doing.
All right, LaMelo Ball. This is what happens now, of course, on the back of one decision by one player around that similar age. LaMelo Ball, who has, by his dad in the last couple of months, been floated that he'll either play in China or in Australia. Now, I don't know how the discussions are going here in the NBL, but we'll start with you, CG. Would you like LaMelo Ball as a teammate?
Oh, look, I think I leave that up to whatever the front office staff would like to do.
Is there a company line on this run sheet?
Is there a way that I can put this chair down to disappear?
I'll go to your word, though. All right, so we've got one in RJ Hampton. We've all been congratulating the NBL and the way that it's gone. I think it's great for the league, and we'll see how it goes. LaMelo Ball would be his second one, and we haven't had short time in the program, but have only had we had Ferguson a couple of years ago, we had Bowen last year, and now we've got one this year. So we've never had two in the same year. LaMelo Ball in the league,
It's
do you think?
Different kettle of fish.
Yeah, I want to see what sort of quality of player he is first. We've seen him play against kids a lot. I want to actually see him play against men and see how he goes. We've seen him all shoot those shots from half court pretty much. There's no doubt he can shoot the ball, but we've also seen how sketchy his defense is and how much attention and effort he puts into his defense, which would get absolutely exposed here. So I think we take the Ball name out of this conversation, and I think we talk strictly NBL. The things that have happened this off-season was like laughable a couple of years ago.
No doubt.
And
this is why the Carmelo Anthony rumour
had some legs.
Had some legs, even though it was probably not going to happen. But yeah, you're right.
And for even these names to be considered when 3 years ago, you know, the NBL wouldn't have even been a blimp on the radar. Now we've got Adam Silver talking about the NBL during the NBA playoffs. All this good, positive energy going towards the NBL is incredible where it's going, and it's really exciting for the future. So if the Ball family were to come to Australia, that's just another notch in the belt of publicity and all that sort of stuff. But it now opens up the doors for future high draft picks, and the RJ Hampton experience will dictate this for years to come.
Now, we know the USA are definitely on their way here. Of course, 2 games at Marvel Stadium is going to be huge. Pretty much sold out, 55,000 people to watch Chris Goulding and the Boomers go up against them. Earlier in the week, I think it was Woj who dropped it of the rumoured names, and Kemba Walker has already confirmed the All-Star from Charlotte in. Zion Williamson, they are trying to get a bit of an idea, although it's probably hard until the NBA draft is done and we find out exactly where he's going to be. But conversation with the Pelicans are probably underway. You see that James Harden is possible or maybe as well. Kevin Durant, but that's one, and I think it's a deliberate ploy, or at least some type of inside knowledge that Kevin Durant featured on posters, although the calf injury is currently floating with, and his new team, the New York Knicks, and see how that goes in the next couple of months. But when you look, and it's always fun to play against the USA, no doubt, but is there anyone in particular that you would like to play up against or share a court with?
Yeah, I think KD's a big one, arguably the best player in the game at the moment, and kind of like Melo was when you would have played against him, just the perfect type of player internationally. Can shoot the ball. They're shooting mid-range jumpers when, you know, they shoot it at a high clip from the NBA 3. Another one's Klay Thompson. I think he's an exceptional international guy as well, the way he can shoot it. You can't turn your head because he's always moving, ready to get a shot up. So those two for me, they'd be great to play against again.
I'm actually looking forward to seeing if Drake actually ends up coming to Australia as well, because Nick Nurse was announced as the Canadian basketball coach last week, and the Raptors and what they're doing right now in the NBA Finals. And then right now, I know it sounds a little bit weird, but I'm not a huge rap person. I know, hard to believe. Being a
super hard to believe.
5'6" white guy. But is it OVO?
What are you looking at me?
I don't know. I'm looking for someone to help me out. This is why I need Homicide here, because he believes he's a rapper as well. But OVO, so they've bought into, or they're a sponsor of the Canadian basketball team as well. So
is that right?
As time goes on, I'm expecting, and with Canadian basketball, it's all-time high and it's hyped, I'm expecting Drake to be here in some
sideline at Perth Arena.
How would you go? Is there anyone in Australia that gives you the most lip, or is there a court or a stadium that gives you lip the most?
Most of them. Yeah.
If they ain't booing you ain't doing your job right.
What's the number?
From someone who knows.
Is it the hair or the flopping that supporters normally raise
hair,
the most?
Mate, hair. So we'll move on.
Can I just say, I'm looking forward to seeing Zion, the way that Team USA play. Just seeing him on the end of a few fast breaks would be worth the price of admission alone.
The big thing will be, and I hope that he plays, obviously Christian Laettner in the 92 USA team, when it was between him and Shaq, they took Laettner after a college career and he just sat there carrying bags. And I know it's a different world now, but you'd like to think if Zion's going to be a part of that team. He's just going to be here to carry the bags.
I think they'll run up some numbers on a few teams.
Yeah.
So if he's going to be
Obviously,
here,
not you guys.
no. Well, once the World Cup sort of comes around in pool play, you would imagine they'd get some pretty comfortable wins. So you'd see him a little bit, I would think.
All right, we've spoken a little bit about Cairns over the off-season, but probably not as much as other teams because they haven't really signed as much as, in particular from a high-profile point of view. But Mirko Jeric signed, a guy who was at Townsville a couple of seasons ago. He spent 3 years overseas, Wertho, and there's the roster. Only the 4 guys at the moment. I'll ask you, Wertho. You're a Cairns legend. Is this a concern for the Taipans? Only 4 players, no imports locked in just yet. Kenny's had a really good NBL career. Jeric, who we'll talk a little about. Jervis, NBL champion. Majuk Deng, of course. Maybe a bit more of a responsibility in Cairns and some more opportunities. But are you nervous being a Cairns legend?
A, not a Cairns legend. B, look, I'm looking at the roster and it's hard to tell when you're not in the inner sanctum.
Mm-hmm.
I think at this stage, and just a perception is they'd probably like to have a few more players than
If you're going to sit on the fence, I would have started saying CG.
But I would say that the signing of Mirko is a really good one.
Yep.
This is a guy who played at Townsville and at the Sydney Kings. And he's been in Serbia for the last 3 years, and I think he will come back. He's a flat-out shooter. He'll be one of the better shooters in the league this year, which is exciting. And if they're able to run plays like they were running plays for Melo Trimble last year, to get him open, I think that would be pretty exciting as a Taipan supporter. That being said, they really need to start filling out these roster spots.
Are you hearing anything about Nate Jawai? Because it has gone relatively quiet. I know he's been overseas, but are you hearing anything about what it means for next year?
I don't know anything about Nate. I did see him last week, and he's in the best shape he's ever been in since his first year in the NBL. The big fella has got himself into shape. He looks great at the moment. And I'm looking around. The Taipans would be crazy not to have him back. Obviously, Nate would have to make a decision of what he wants to do as well. You know, he's just been over in Europe. Does he go back over there? Obviously, from a league perspective, would love Nate to stick around, and especially in the shape that he's in right now. Because in patches of last season, when he was getting post touches, he was incredible. And then they went away from him again, and frustration set in, and that's part of losing with the Taipans at the moment. But man, if I was any roster and I had a spot, I'd be calling Nate Jawai right now.
In particular, in a roster that has shooters, because he's in a really good post player. So if you're going to have to double team him, and I think it happened with you in one of the games you played against them, where he's getting inside. He was able to find. In fact, they should have beaten you. It was one of the earlier games.
It's the game that Melo went for 50 in Cairns.
I mean, a lot of our game plan, Melo, of course, what are you going to do in ISO situations, in on-balls? But a lot of our game plan was around when Nate got the ball. As Wertho said, when he was getting post touches, he was in good shape, working down low. We came up with multiple different scenarios that we would have to rotate off. We would double. And then you got Devon Hall, Melo, guys that can really shoot the ball. He makes it really tough. And just on their roster, I mean, they went and found Melo Trimble. So you have to have faith in their recruiting skills to go and find another diamond in the rough that they can get.
Tory Craig.
Exactly.
They've been able to get guys who can play. The issue's been, and financial is probably the main thing, holding these guys and having them stay in Cairns, and it's always been a concern.
It's funny you say that about the game plan was about Nate in the post. Like, I went to multiple shoot-arounds last year as part of my professional work, but a lot of teams were doing a lot of teams were doing the same thing. It wasn't really centred around Melo and the middle on ball. It was centred around if Nate Jawai gets the ball in the post, because he is a great passer out of the post, and for someone of that size to have the skill work of his footwork and his passing ability, it's incredible. And like I said, if there's any club with a spare space, I'd be calling up Nate Jawai right now in the shape that he's in.
All NBL select team heading to China as well. It was announced in the last week. And always interesting when we look at some of the names up there. Of course, Ramon Moore, Daniel Johnson, Kevin White, all 36ers there. Mitch Norton, Steindl as well. Both champions in the last season. Josh Boone gets an opportunity. Craig Moeller at Sydney. Adnam, who played really well in China last week for Phoenix in their debut. Demetrius Conger and Majuk, the last two, or Corey Webster as well. But the last two currently have yet to sign in the NBL. I'm going to start with Conger for you. Wertho, do you expect him to be in the league next year?
No, but I think Majuk probably will go to Cairns.
You think Majuk will end up at Cairns? I'm not against that. What's Conger's restriction or why clubs weren't picking up, considering he was second in MVP 2 years back?
Well, I don't think he had a great season last year.
He didn't, I agree.
And I think in a league that is progressing, you need to keep moving forward. And if something doesn't work, I mean, if Conga doesn't work in Joey Wright's system, where will he work? And I just didn't see it from him last year. He didn't look like he was in shape when he came back. He had no lift like he had at the Illawarra Hawks. It's an interesting person to have in this list for me, but maybe he does surprise someone, and maybe because Trevor Gleeson is coaching, maybe he's trying to fill the void if Tariko White does not come back.
And this is obviously he's in the lineup and been pushed by management, I assume, by his own management to that exact reason, opportunity under Trevor Gleeson, or to show NBL teams that, you know what, you're right, it wasn't a great year last year or second half of the year when he came in, but the year before, he was really good. Defensively, he still struggles a little bit, I think, and that's maybe the concern with some NBL teams, because, all clubs want you to run and gun and put heat on the rim, yet you've got to be able to stop someone.
Is this the first team not coached by Andre Lamanis in a long time?
I think Bevo took the reins for a year there. Andre's had the last couple.
Yeah, so because it's not a Boomers team.
No,
it's an NBL team.
But Andre has done a lot of the all NBL team as well. So
okay.
Yeah, the previous couple of years we hadn't seen as many internationals as we're seeing in this list. So it's an interesting one. I mean, the Conga one for me, like if you're a Cairns, proven guys in the NBL are hard to come by. Okay, statistically or whatever you think, he may not have had an amazing year, but he's proven in the league. I would assume by him going on this trip, he wants to be
no doubt
in the league, or at least get some offers from teams in this league. So he's a really interesting one for me.
Yeah, you're going to be interesting to see how it plays out in a couple of weeks' time. All right, before I do let you go, Phoenix, next time you take the NBL court in an official game, you're going to have a Crosstown rival. Are you excited for it?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't around with the Tigers when the Dragons were here, so no Melbourne Derby games for me. So I think that's going to be a really cool time of the season, the few times we play them. Be interesting to see what they do with the final few spots of their roster, and what we do as well, because both playing in the same arena, teams are going to want bragging rights.
You were both at the Gold Coast together, you two, or not?
Yep.
Yeah, cool. So obviously you had Gold Coast. Brisbane weren't in the league at the time, were they? So, okay, there you go.
But I mean, it is the 10-year reunion of the South Dragons Championship team this year, and I can speak
what are you
on we're all getting together at the end of the month, thanks to Joe Ingles, yes, and we'll have a bit of fun, but. But the Melbourne rivalry is something fantastic, and it only really became a rivalry in the finals.
Yeah.
Because it's hard to say it's a rivalry during the regular season. Yes, there'll be the Crosstown, but until they play each other in the finals, that's when the real rivalry will start, and I'm looking forward to that. 5-game grand final series that you won, 22 fights, and you're involved in 17 of them, I've been told reliably from the stats going out the back. Yeah, good job.
I must have been on the bench with the other 5. Yeah, exactly. All right. Actually, congratulations too, mate. Masters champion? Yeah, it never gets old winning gold with the Masters and the has-beens. How did you fill it up? Oh, I did all right. Did all right? Yeah. Were you MVP of the tournament? Did they have an MVP? No, they've just hand out walking sticks at the end of it and wheelchairs. All right. And for you, mate, golfing at the moment or what? Yeah, I played a little bit. Hitting it okay. I'm going on a little hiatus. Taking a rest? Yeah, I'm going back to basketball. Oh, you really? Yeah. Hey, great to have you in. Good to see you fit too, mate. Thank you. Good luck for the off-season and the movement as well. Were those always a pleasure, mate? Cheers, mate. We'll be in sometime soon. Liam, just on Corey. Actually, I know I was meant to throw this at the start. Last week, Corey came in here and said, I'm going to Mongolia. And I thought it was a club he was talking about. I had no idea, in one ear, out the other one. Then he bobs up, 3x3 commentating the Under-18 World Cup in Mongolia. Do you have a photo of Homicide? He's put up in the last... Look at this. Okay, it is summertime in Mongolia. He's commentating, one out. There must be his producer next to him, in a blanket. We love him, but he's a random dude. In a blanket. Anyway, so maybe he'll be back next week. Liam Santamaria is working on a fairly decent story as well. He will be back. #NBL Overtime, #NBL20 to get involved. Until next week, enjoy your hoops.